Hi everyone, and welcome to Module 3, Public and Private Key Method of Encryption. In the previous modules we talked about how encryption works, the basics of it, and what you need to know about the general terminology. But in this method we're going to be talking about the predominant method of encrypting data on a computer system, which is the public and private key method. In the previous module we talked about something called the shared key method, which was an earlier opinion about how encryption should work. And it, again, just to remind you, it works a lot like the keys to your house. Okay, so I have to give you the keys to my house in order for you to get through the locked door. And as a locking mechanism, that's very secure because you can't get into my house if you don't have the key. The problem becomes what happens after I give you that key. If I give you the keys to my house, you can take that key and you could copy it at a hardware store. You could give it to somebody else who might then in turn use it to enter into my house and steal all my stuff. So it lacks a measure of control, right? Because once I give you my key, you have complete control and unfettered access to not only the premises, but you can also distribute that to anybody you want. And when we're talking about digital content, that becomes a very big problem because it means that we only have one way of unlocking the data. And in order to unlock the data, you have to understand how that one way works, so you have to have the password. And it gets shared and passed around by so many people that you can't control it. You can't definitively say that you only know the people who are accessing that data. And when we talk about encryption, that becomes a huge problem for us because encrypted data on a computer system is very, very sensitive data. There are very few people who encrypt everything by default. By definition, usually encryption means that it's being applied to data that is very, very sensitive. It's very, very important data. So having one single point of entry into that data is a bit of a security risk. And that's why the need for a new method or a better method that allows for more control came from. And that brings us to the public and private key method. It's a two-key method. So instead of just having one key that accesses the data, we have two. And I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but the best way I've termed to be able to describe the public and private key method is magical shipping labels. So when I want to send a package to somebody with UPS or Purolator or whoever, I have to create a shipping label that tells the UPS driver where to drop off the package at the guy's house. It also says where it's coming from. Public and private keys are a lot like magical shipping labels in the way that they can only, the encrypted contents can only be opened by the person who the package is addressed to. Okay, so think about like a shipping label that will only open for the person who's written on the address. It can't be opened by anybody else. If the package gets stolen, it's magic, it's protected, and it can't be opened by anyone else but the intended recipient. And that's the way the public and private key method works. So when you're doing this, you create a public and a private key, okay? And the two have to match in order for the encrypted container to be opened. So you distribute your public key out to the world, okay? You send it out to whoever you want, and they use that as part of the encryption to send you a package. So they include that when they're preparing the encrypted document as part of the package. This is where the shipping label idea comes back into place. They're writing your name, they're using your public key to create the encrypted package, and your identity, or a piece of your identity, becomes part of the encrypted document. When the document gets back to you and you try and decrypt it, it's searching for the match to that public key called the private key. So it's searching for its kind of like its twin, its brother, which is the private key. And if it finds the private key that is associated with the public key, the document will open. You don't have to type a password. There's nothing fancy going on. There's no shared keys. It's just looking for the match for that private key. So in this diagram, what we have here is the use of public key encryption and decryption. So the message is prepared by person A, and they have already downloaded a copy of person B's public key. So they're using this public key to create the encrypted message. They're selecting it, actually, when they go through the encryption process. And they're encrypting the message, and they're transmitting it to person B. When person B tries to decrypt that message, again, what it's doing is it's looking for the matching private key to the public key. And if it finds that the two match up, yep, person B's public key matches this private key that I have stored, the message is decrypted and the person can read it. If the public key doesn't match the private key that's installed on that person's computer, the message will not encrypt. So, or not decrypt, sorry. So what you end up having is a very secure method that's kind of self-aware. It knows who you are based on if you have that matching public and private key pair. And that's just a basic overview of how the public and private key method works. It's a little bit confusing, and it's really, really hard to understand until it's practiced. So that's why in Module 4, what we're going to do is we're going to actually apply this concept. I'm going to show you, going through in another video, how you actually make the two and how it actually works.